Hey, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Business and Life Stories with Mike and James. Super excited to introduce our guest this week, Fabio Boulle. He's works with Investors Europe Mauritius. If those of you who don't know where Mauritius is, you need to look it up. It's a super cool place, really famous for diving, but also just a neat place. It's in the Indian Ocean off the east coast of Africa. Fabio does a fantastic interview show on the Offshore Marketer website. And welcome, Fabio.
Thanks for having me, Michael, and James as well. It's a real pleasure for you. And indeed, Mauritius is a place to be, especially for holidays, also if you wanted to just have some time off, especially after this Corona business goes away and people start opening up.
It was interesting, Fabio. We were just having a quick chat before here, and you were telling me about the everyone has heard about the unfortunate demise of the dodo. And off the top of my head, I never realised where the dodo came from. But unfortunately, there's a bit of a claim to fame with Mauritius, right?
Yes. As I say, unfortunately, the dodo was extinct by the Dutch, apparently. That's what I came to understand. So, but they were very friendly. They were like chickens coming around, and just, it was free food at the time. You're in an island, nothing. This was 500 years ago, probably more even. I'm not sure about the actual dates, but it was free food for the Dutch, and they just said, okay, we'll just take whatever we have, and then soon after, no more dodos, and a bit like the Ice Age. But the Ice Age interpreted it a bit differently, but
It's a similar story with certain species in New Zealand when the first pioneers came over, and I believe it was a similar story with some of the tortoises over in Galapagos and other islands too. They were so easy to catch, and after being at sea for 3 or like 6 months, it's totally one can understand. And back then, where the how that occurred. So
yeah. Well, fortunately, times are different, so at least we can take care of these little ones. But
absolutely. Hey, could you just do a quick intro about kind of who you are and where you come from, and sort of what and what you do? And
sure. So I'll try to give you a short intro, a big but small short intro. You know what I mean?
Fantastic.
Right. So I'm actually from Portugal. I was born in Lisbon. My family is half Portuguese, half Mauritius. And that's why I'm actually back in Mauritius. But I was only coming back. I actually came to Mauritius about 2014. Before then, I started working about 2008, late 2008, in stockbroker in Gibraltar called Investors Europe Limited, or Investors Europe Gibraltar, which I just had like the front seat of the financial crisis, which was. It was a real experience for me just to basically see in live action of what actually was happening in the world, and you had the Bloomberg and the CNBC going on all the time. You just keep hearing bad news, but it was enlightening to actually understand what was going on in the world, and unfortunately, it was an event that I think everyone has. A lot of us experienced and what I had to go through, but that actually gave me a lot of tools of actually developing in the sales side of things, actually developing client relationships, because people just suddenly were afraid. They were just thinking, oh, can I trust this financial institution or the stockbroker, or even banks? And you see all these banks in America just going bankrupt and being bailed out and whatever. So it was actually interesting to see the offshore world that they just simply opened up, because suddenly people wanted to protect their assets. And these were whether US or outside, or Europeans or Australians that just want to, simply protect their assets in case something bad happened in the financial institutions. So then out of that, I kind of continued my journey in the financial world. In 2013, this is actually, the stockbroker is a family business owned by my father. He decided, because he was he was in Mauritius, he was born in Mauritius, he decided, okay, I would just want to retire in Mauritius, and he said, well, do you want to come with, I think? And I said, well, I was at the time 26, 25, I had nothing to do in Europe, apart from, going around in south of Spain during the weekends or going back to Portugal or doing some sort of holidays. So I said, okay. So off I went with knowing no one in an island, only my dad. And then suddenly, after, I think I arrived in September, after a month, we went back to Europe because of other businesses. And I just was stuck around in the island knowing no one and just had to regroup and actually build a team in Mauritius. And so very successfully. And so that's what I've been doing for the last, until today. Throughout this journey, I decided to actually create a podcast because I actually read a book called Traffic Secrets recently, or last year, by Russell Brunson.
Great book.
And he really expressed this self-publishing or publishing in the social media areas. And I just said, okay, well, I have to do something. So having a chat with a friend of mine in Mauritius, what am I going to do? I don't even know. I just said, start something. Get your phone and start recording. So initially, the podcast that I created was something like Bull's Corner or Bull's something. Bull's Up. It's like, no idea why. It's just out of funny, and I just, okay, let's talk about whatever I want. Then things started getting serious in a sense that I just I just got this idea of saying, okay, maybe I could do something I enjoy. And at the time, I kind of fell in love with copywriting, understanding all the psychology and so forth, and tried to understand how these marketers, whether they were copywriters, whether they were funnel builders, whether they were, I don't know, they call it media buyers these days, I think, how they actually work, how they actually grow a business. And so I came up with this concept of the Offshore Marketer show, which basically it is a podcast that I'm just trying to understand how to actually create a marketing not a strategy or getting experts on the show to talk about specific things so that I myself can learn something and actually share it with others as well. And because I've been very much involved in sales, very successfully, and throughout, when I actually moved to Mauritius, I was able to, and I'm not, let's say, giving myself a tap on my back, but I was able to go from $30 million or 30 million years to $250 million in clients' assets with a lot of obviously hard work. So sales kind of been something that I've I think I've done well, and so, but never the marketing itself. So it's something that I wanted to explore, and so that's really the reason why I'm actually following this let's say this journey of learning from a lot of other different people, and just it caused from organic reach, just out of nothing. I have so many people that want to come in. So yeah, this is kind of where I am right now. I think that charter gave you a short.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah,
That's
But,
fantastic.
but just an add-on. I mean, right now I kind of had to put everything on hold. I told James about this because I was actually the reason I'm actually in America is because I'm getting a treatment, medical treatment, and so I had to just settle down, get myself sorted out, and then come back probably in October, where I come back to family and get settled. So kind of also strategizing the whole thing that I want to do for this podcast, because I think it's just important to understand what I want to go and go moving forward. So I think that's a long, short introduction, I think.
So it's really fascinating how in the world of investing in finance, I've experienced that too, where the the part where it's not so much in our business selling a customer, it's more educating about what's going on is sort of our style of sales, right? Because people just don't know that much about investing. They're not learning it in school when they're growing up. So we're letting them know what the deal is. But yeah, when it comes to marketing, I think most of us sit there going, what the heck? So what are some of the things that have really helped you? And you know, coming out of Gibraltar or Mauritius, these aren't, you know, it's not like somebody hopping on saying, well, I'm sitting on the New York Stock Exchange or I'm sitting on the Nikkei in Tokyo. I mean, those are places people have heard of.
Yeah.
Or even me in Austin. It's like, well, I'm out of Austin. People are like, well, if you're not in New York, what could you know? So what are some of the things you picked up from the marketing show as far as tips for people that want to get started marketing their business?
I think so. So the foundations I'm actually putting in place is to really understand who you want to basically market to, and you have this this concept of knowing your avatar or creating this client profile. And what I'm trying to understand is even go deeper and actually going one step ahead of really understanding what James has told me once before about the 2 a.m. voice that keeps these people kind of like shaken and alive and saying, oh, what is going to happen in my life? And so my idea is to really have a good foundation of who you want to target to, because even if your offer sucks, you can still probably succeed because you're hitting those pain points that people will just say, oh, this is me. I can totally relate to this. This is actually will probably help me. And then from there, you can just probably improve your offer and actually make a bigger impact for your own brand, whether it is a personal brand, whether it is a company that you're trying to just develop. So start with that, and actually by doing that, you can even create your messaging, what's called messaging map, whereby everything you say as a company or as a brand will evolve in towards those pain points, the language that these people are trying to figure out, and it's just going to have probably a easier journey on developing a business. And whereas if you just go like you go everywhere instead of going one way, you're just going to have not the same impact. So that's one of the things I've been kind of learning about. Yeah.
So a messaging map is a great idea, and I hadn't heard that phrase before. Thanks for sharing that with us. Sounds like it's the idea of all the messages go to the same point or aim the same direction.
Exactly. So if you think about this, is you create this map of messaging, and you can just use either on any social media because everything will be the same, right? And you don't need to rely. So in the end, you can either use a funnel, you can either use emails, you can either use social media, but it's going to be the same thing as you're going to talk about it. It's just probably the way you deliver it on a funnel or the sales funnel, on a Facebook ad or whatever, or an email. It's just going to be differently, but it's going to talk about the same thing. You just have these different possibilities that will help you just to scale up. But you can always start with one, see if it actually works, resonates, and then take it from the next step.
I love that. So if I could ask you a question about investing, and this is something that is so important for everybody to invest internationally. In whatever country you're from, you don't want to have all your assets based in that country. You need some international exposure as well.
Yeah.
So what are some of the more interesting objections and things you've seen in the business, or even what are some of the big scammers you've run into, or what can you share with us?
Sure. I think some of them were more. So we, as the broker itself, we offer online global access to clients. We actually don't offer Mauritius. We could, but the Mauritian exchange is so small, so we tend to focus on clients that, whether they are individuals or whether they are let's say hedge funds or banks even that we work with, they just, in the end, it's about reputation, online reputation. the way we have put things with Investors per se is that we actually put the face of the owner. People, when they see this, they have a sense of being comfortable of even speaking to this company. I've seen companies in Panama, but I will not name names, that they don't actually put any. So they'll probably give you a name, but they don't put a picture. And I think that's really different in terms of actually saying. So if I'm a really wealthy investor, let's say I have $1 million as of my IRA or my retirement account that I would like to invest into this using this company as a service provider to invest in the markets. I kind of want to know who's leading this company, who is the face of this company before I actually make the decision. And so objections per se, it's been more security-wise. It's not been sometimes pricing objections, but it's being just more saying, okay, who are you? Sometimes we even have clients, and we have clients because we're in Mauritius and it's so far out for some people. And a lot of our client base is actually from US. It's kind of difficult for them to come across and visit us, but we do have times that we do, and they just want to see, just say, okay, I've been speaking to Fabio on the phone. Who's Fabio? Oh, you're Fabio. Oh, nice to meet you, man. Yeah, let's go for a meal. And that's how I think business in the end happens, showing your face. And for some reason, people trust me, which is, I guess, it's a good compliment. But in terms of, again, I'm trying to think of objections. Objections, I think, small clients, retail clients, I'm talking about people who have $10,000, they will have a lot of objections in terms of pricing because sometimes they can't afford it, they don't want to pay or whatever. And so yes, there was objections. I have to spend probably 5 times more on a smaller client if I'm dealing with that specific profile or that case. Whereas if it's a big client, it takes me probably half the time, 1/3. I once had one client that he contacted about 5 brokers, right? We received the inquiry. It was about $100,000 account size. I called him same day. Next day, he opened the account. And that's right. And he said, listen, I've been contacting for last week 5 clients. You were the first one who go back to me. And I said, okay, cool. And I did not give him any special price. I gave him standard prices for $100,000 account. And he was just like very happy with the service. He was very happy with the trust, and he's still with us today.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I think that I always enjoy thinking about the interaction between marketing and sales, and that as an example was an example of the trust required for sales. So if you've got a great sales team, or if you yourself are good at sales, if there's no trust, then no one comes on to that stage. Or if they do come to a conversation, then you've got to do a lot of relationship building and rapport building. And obviously the other side of the coin is that you could have great marketing and you have droves of people, but if you're unable to really close them and so you can serve them, and then that falls apart as well. And and I know that in sales we always think about sales being the lifeblood of a business, but what we're really talking about here also is marketing. It is also the lifeblood, and one of the great marketers, Joe Polish, right. He always states that it's like marketing's the lifeblood, because that's where the trust comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, especially online. So I think if you have a really good marketing, coming back to message mapping, if you have a really good marketing where it provides that integrity, that trust online, because everything, let's face it, we live in an online world. Even if you don't have, so if you have a really good marketing on, let's say, on the front end of the client, where it actually educates the client, gives all the information. In some cases, you can actually do the one close.
Yeah.
Because they have
Absolutely.
so much, they don't need all this information. And even if you have, I wouldn't say terrible salesman, but not such a savvy salesman that is so experienced, he probably will be able to even close that client. And so they all go very well together. But obviously, it will the better the marketing, the less objections for sure. And I've seen that, and I think for us that happens a lot. I mean, we have a lot of referrals, but there was a lot of information on our website in the past. We adapted, but people just read and say, okay, I don't even want to speak to anyone. I just want to open an account like this, And so that was, So definitely they go hand in hand. But good marketing helps a lot.
Yeah, and that's such an important takeout for startups and early stage companies. And that really brings me on to another idea I had, which I'd love to talk through with you, is the concept of having a podcast, not just for the fun of meeting people, which I know all three of us here love and doing, but also the fact that creates trust as well, right? And that can be used as a really important marketing and upfront and value, can't it?
Oh yes. So I think the podcast. Everyone, almost any business should have a podcast these days, because it is a new way of developing a relationship with clients. Obviously, it needs to be well done, but it takes time as well. It takes a lot of work, but it's just instead of you advertising on newspaper, you are able probably to create this relationship, getting more followers, and then you can have, let's say, 1 million downloads, and suddenly you say, okay, I have this special offer, and you send out on your podcast. Costs you zero, right?
Exactly.
After 1 year, let's say, you invest in your podcast, costs you zero, you probably make a lot of money, right? Yeah. And the beauty of the podcast is actually you're able to just expand your network so quickly by having these types of calls and interactions, that you speak to other people that have a very mutual topic, let's say, and so it just opens up the whole universe of it's almost like the new multi-marketing tool. I don't know, it's just suddenly your network just expands so much faster. On LinkedIn, especially, I think that's something, and so if it's invested well by companies, for sure, it's a great tool. And because again, the marketing then comes in, and then you can use email to keep these people going on, and then you just help them more and more and more, and you really create a great brand out of this, out of your company. So it's really important. I think everyone should have it, even personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you mentioned, what I learned from you, and what Mike and I find is, it's such a privilege to have the opportunity to learn from guests, and and that's huge, isn't it? It's like if the podcast itself can provide the audience and the platform and the great questions, the return from that is that there's so much learning exchanged. And I mean, let's explore that in so much as small businesses and startups, because having a startup or an early stage company can be quite a lonely run, right? But having a podcast where it's the learning through conversation, it almost comes back to that idea of your clients flying over to see you face to face. It's like a supernova, isn't it? It's
let me put it this way, and I'll give you an example. Imagine, Michael, you have a particular investor that is very niche towards your business, right? You want to schedule a meeting, and he says, "Who are you?" You probably never heard about you because He's not on the radio. But if you invite him to the podcast, he most likely say yes. And that's one of the secrets. And suddenly, if you do this for the people that you want to learn from, you give them a platform for them to explore, to exchange information, to put themselves towards an audience they've never been to. And it's just like, it's almost like free learning, And
I love it.
Everybody
wants to give advice, right?
Yeah. Everyone wants to talk about
human nature.
Yep. So
I wonder whether the modern times with what is going on in the world, or what has been for the last couple of years, and podcasts have escalated, and it isn't just due to a lot of people having more time on their hands, but it's a way where people can give, isn't it? It's a way that it isn't just me communicating with Mike and Fabio. It's a way that I can give my time, I can give my concentration, you can give back to me, we can give to our respective audiences. It's a very dynamic form of almost giving out of content and giving out support, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just will help. There's about 700,000 apparently podcasts in the world. Not all of them go up to 30 episodes at all, and then just crash to get in. This just people are just not interested in continuing. So it is. You can have any podcast on anything you'd like. You have a hobby, anything you like, and you can make that contribution for someone. Because when you create a podcast, obviously, you become, let's say, the expert. People want to listen to you because you're the expert, and you have something to share that they probably don't know. So, for instance, I listen to news, or I listen to a specific topic on. So I have specific podcasts about certain religions. I'm, as an example, I'm a Catholic, so I like to listen about what's happening in the Catholic world and certain topics they talk about. And so it's just so broad that even if I like, for instance, I like kayak fishing, I could just find a podcast about kayak fishing and say, today I learned how to wiggle this way to catch this, this tuna, It could be as simple as that, or as I don't know, it's just I think it's a unique way to provide your value to this world, to express your message, to just say, to even meet people saying, hey, I'm actually like, I really enjoy these activities, like you sharing comments. So what have you experienced? And then that's what a lot of people, especially the big influencers, like to do. Obviously, you have to probably niche down at some point, but yeah, it's for sure. I think it's better than probably using Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And it's just a medium that you just talk and you be yourself. There's no curtains behind.
No.
Yeah, it's one thing I love about it. There's no there's no keyboard warriors on a live cast.
Right. Yeah. Everyone seems to have an opinion today, right? They all stuck at home.
Yeah, and without rational discourse, without a logical, polite conversation, you just get really nasty, really fast. I love the podcast format because people, they have to be a little bit more careful about what they're saying, and it's easier to connect with a person. It's more they become a human being instead of just a bunch of characters on a screen.
Yeah. You're giving your face away in the sense that you have to also compromise with what you're saying. It's not like, you're ugly, I don't like you. Go. It's like, and then someone looking at you saying, what? Okay. Yeah. So for sure.
What do you find different about European companies and African companies versus American-based companies as far as investing goes?
So Difference. It's the type of products they're looking for. In the U.S. companies, they're also just looking for generally U.S. markets, U.S. equities, but that's some sort of mutual funds. European companies, they and also sorry, U.S. companies, they also again they want to predominantly invest in U.S. markets, whether it is any sort of product, obviously that's listed. European companies, they do a bit of everything. Depends where. If it's UK, they'll probably only do UK in terms of investing itself, as far as I've seen. African countries, they have a lot of difficulties moving money around, and so they're using a lot of them. Mauritius, even though Mauritius has been in a blacklist, hopefully it will get out of it by end of this year or beginning of next year, but they're using it as a hub to invest, and vice versa. A lot of companies from Europe and even US are using Mauritius to invest within Africa. And so African countries have a lot of difficulties moving money around because of worldwide regulations and currency controls, I guess. And so I personally have not had any much experience with African companies apart from South Africa. But as far as I've kind of have the feeling that it's more difficult to actually know who's the actual beneficial owner per se. So meaning in a compliance point of view, there are risk-based approaches these days by the FATF, which is, I don't remember what's the actual name. It's anti-money laundering worldwide organization. And so basically, there's some companies, specifically in Mauritius, that if they do business with people in Kenya, their risk-based compliance regulations, they actually have to visit that client on the address that they are. That becomes crazy. Right?
I love it.
Why? Because if this guy says, "Okay, I'm John Doe. I live in Kenya, street, whatever," I mean, it's in the end, it's a risk that this company, whether it's an insurance company or real estate company, is doing business with them. It's a risk that they have to undertake. So it becomes a lot of compliance to deal with African countries, whereas with American countries or European, it's just much easier. However, compliance is changing, and investing or certainly having investments worldwide is getting more and more regulatory. You have a lot more regulatory procedures. It's just getting harder, and I don't know if obviously they don't. I don't think they do it on purpose, but they're just clamping down on certain investments into products. Like in US, I don't think a retail client can invest in ETFs anymore, right? That's been a few.
Oh, you can.
You still can.
Yes.
Because I know in Europe, certain products they have the MiFID II, and they can't actually invest. You have to be considered a professional to actually invest in certain products like an ETF or even probably in options per se. So they don't allow it unless you actually want to change that, which means you have less protection in terms of something could go bad.
We have that. We have that with hedge funds. If you want to invest in a hedge fund, you have to have $5 million in liquid cash.
Wow.
Not tied to your house or anything else. Although, as I tell people, unless you know something I don't, most of these hedge fund fees are high enough, it may not be worth your time.
Sure.
But they take 20% of the cut plus 2% additional. It's like, that's pretty steep.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't legally buy anybody in our government, although you can make lots of contributions to your favorite politician.
Yes.
I'm a Philly. It's a worldwide situation.
Yeah. Well, I guess that probably happens even in Mauritius. So, yeah. So it's an ongoing worldwide thing, I guess. Probably not in China though.
Probably not. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So You had the idea to do the marketing podcast. It's doing really well. So where are you thinking of taking it? Are you gonna go for bigger marketers? You're gonna
Right.
try to get like the guys that started Oracle or Intel, or how high are you go with this?
Hey, listen, I don't know. Okay, well, the idea right now is to have so much, I guess, content to create a client journey, so that when people sign up, when people are interested, they actually see, okay, listen, so this is first step, listen to this episode. Second step, listen to this episode. Third step, listen to that episode. And it has some sort of like rationality behind it, so that they actually understand how you should do in terms of a marketing strategy, and it will be for free. Obviously, in the future, I could create a course. Not that I want to. I think, and the reason is I've kind of been probably 3 years ago burned into these courses of, if I just say high ticket closer, that probably rings a bell to probably James. And
Yep.
so it's been around.
Yeah.
And so this guy has been around, and so I was one of the guys that got kind of burned, and I thought, and so that's why I'm probably not going to do a course, because I just think, just give things for free, and good things will come back to you, and probably sponsorships and whatever will be interested in being involved with the project itself. But yeah, the idea is to create content so that it's like there's a rationality behind it, and then obviously go for big guys in a marketing world, and then probably be part of something bigger than it is, and try to make it as much as automated as I can, and just do what the things I love to do which is doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think that ties really well back to one of your first comments, Fabio, about how every business, a startup and an early stage, particularly the space which Mike and I work in, but every business should have a podcast now, because people have shifted. I mean, I think every business should have a blog as well, because I always read blogs as well as listen to a podcast. But I feel that they should be part of the bigger picture of growing a business. It's sort of it's an integral part now, isn't it? And there should be a bigger vision for where that element of marketing, where the podcast wants to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Blogging, I think, is a different ball game. I think it's a more long-term thing. But podcasting, you have a lot bigger impact, because you can suddenly reach out to more users, more listeners, because it just needs this little guy to hear what you have to say, right? And it just could be cleaning, cooking, whatever, and they're just listening to what are you talking about. And so the phone is a new, even though you can look at blog posts on your phone, Google kind of keeps changing the rules. It's kind of difficult for you to keep up. So it's not easy to keep your marketing and your blogging at always the highest standards. But maybe there'll be changes. Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess finally, how would you like to talk about how people can contact you, or what's a project going on, or just what's the best way for people to reach out to you, either in a financial aspect or a marketing podcast aspect, and so they can find out some more about you and have some great value.
Sure. I mean, they can actually contact me on LinkedIn if they want to contact me, let's say, in whether it's financial, it's podcasting, it's whatever, if they have any sort of business proposal as well. Or they can actually just simply visit as well the offshoremarketer.com, which is actually where I post all the latest podcasts, interviews, episodes, and they can sign up for newsletters if they want. They can just keep in touch, or just simply go to Apple or Google Podcasts and also get connected there. So either which, I'm always happy to connect and expand the network, because you never know who you're speaking to, and it's always good to expand your connections and actually evolve as a person. Just getting better at what we're trying to do in this life.
That's really well said, Fabio. And I hope everybody listening takes the time to contact Fabio.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And contact information is down below the video.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Fabio.